Look at the skyline of any major city: New York, London, Dubai. You see monuments of steel, glass, and human engineering. You see architecture. But that is an illusion. What you're actually looking at is the highest stakes casino on Earth. A skyscraper is not a building. It is a massive, highly leveraged financial instrument. Here is a billion-dollar skyscraper. The owner is usually a massive Wall Street investment fund like the Blackstone Group. They hold the deed to the building, but they don't know how to fix a commercial elevator or negotiate a lease with a local coffee shop. And they don't want to learn. They just want the building to act like a giant stock or bond that goes up in value. Because the owners don't want to get their hands dirty, they hire a massive property management company like Colliers International, CBRE and JLL. This company becomes the landlord. The landlord has a service contract with the owners, so he doesn't pay a dime and doesn't take on any financial risk. He is simply a property manager, and he takes a cut of the rent before passing the rest of the money up to the owner. When a company rents an office, the name on the lease is the landlord's. The landlord is the one who hires the security guards, cleans the lobby, evicts tenants who don't pay, and makes sure the air conditioning works. They act as a giant shield, so the actual owners never have to speak to a complaining tenant. The owner cares about valuation. They don't actually care about the physical cash of your rent. They care that the building is fully rented out so they can go to a massive global bank and say, "Look how successful this building is. It's now worth $2 billion. Give us a massive tax-free loan against it." If you want to become an owner of a skyscraper, there are 3 distinct height brackets. The first is the skyscraper, with a height range of 150 meters to 299 meters. It costs $150 million to $500 million. This is the category where most city centre iconic buildings live, like the Gherkin of London, the Metropolitan Tower of New York City, and the Torre de Cristal of Madrid. At this height, buildings are highly practical, incredibly efficient, and usually built for pure commercial or residential real estate return on investment. The second one is the super tall, which is 300 meters to 599 meters. It costs $1 billion to $4 billion. Some good examples are Taipei 101 of Taiwan, Ping An Finance Center of Shenzhen, China, Lotte World Tower of Seoul, South Korea. Once a building crosses the 300-meter mark, it enters a realm where gravity is no longer the main enemy, but the wind. If you were to stand on the top floor of a super tall building during a storm, you would sway several feet back and forth. To keep people from getting seasick, engineers install massive multi-hundred-ton steel pendulums called tuned mass dampers near the top floors. When the wind pushes the building right, the giant ball swings left, absorbing the kinetic energy and stabilizing the tower. You rarely see perfectly square super tall buildings. To survive intense high-altitude wind currents, they have to be shaped like airplane wings or sails. The third one is the megatall, which is any building above 600 meters. It costs $2 billion to $5 billion. As of right now, there are only 4 completed megatall buildings on Earth. Burj Khalifa of Dubai, Merdeka 118 of Malaysia, Shanghai Tower of China, and Makkah Royal Clock Tower of Saudi Arabia. At this level, buildings are rarely constructed just for real estate profits. They are built as massive geopolitical statements of wealth and national engineering power. Megatall buildings are so incredibly high that the temperature, wind speed and air pressure at the top can be completely different than at the base. Before the construction starts, you have to pay the hidden taxes. The first is zoning and the permit mafia. In cities like New York or London, just getting the legal permission to dig a hole can cost tens of millions of dollars and take 5 years of fighting local politicians. Then there is the strangest concept in real estate called air rights. To stop developers from building massive walls of concrete that block out the sun and turn the streets into dark tunnels, the city government created strict zoning laws. Now, imagine you're a developer. You want to build a 30-story luxury tower, but the zoning laws cap you at 10 stories. Sitting on the dirt next to you is an old, historic 3-story church. According to the city grid, that church is also legally allowed to build up to 10 stories, so they have unused 7 stories. The city has a loophole whereby the church can sell their unused stories. You hand the church $15 million in cash. In exchange, the church signs over their air rights. You take their 7 invisible stories and stack them on top of your own. If you want to reach 30 stories, you don't stop at the church. You knock on the door of the bakery down the block, the small apartment building across the street, and the local theatre. You buy all of their unused empty sky, consolidate it into one massive invisible column. This is exactly how you get the impossibly skinny, pencil-like megatowers shooting 1,000 feet into the air in New York City. Once the building is up, the owners rent the space out to the landlord. Then the landlord rents it out to companies. If you're a company interested in renting a skyscraper for an office space, you're already in a loss. Every commercial building is mathematically rigged. In the real estate industry, this is called the loss factor, and it is the most brilliant trick in the business. Imagine you rent a 10,000 square foot office for your company. You sign the lease, you get the keys, and you go to lay down the carpet. But when you measure the room, it's only 7,500 square feet. So where did the rest of it go? You didn't just rent your office. The landlord charged you a percentage of the grand marble lobby downstairs. They charged you for the space inside the elevator shafts. They charged you for the janitor's closet in the basement. In a major skyscraper, the loss factor can be as high as 30%. You are paying thousands of dollars a month for square footage that you legally cannot use. The house mathematically shaves a percentage off every single tenant, and over 30 floors, that invisible space generates millions in pure profit. In commercial real estate, landlords trap tenants into a 10-year commercial lease. When a company moves into an empty floor of a skyscraper, it is just raw concrete. The company has to spend millions of dollars of their own money building out the glass conference rooms, the kitchen, and the wiring. The landlord watches this happen and smiles, because once you spend $2 million building out your perfect office, you are trapped. 5 years later, the landlord raises the rent. They know you are going to be furious, but they also know the math. They know that packing up 100 employees, breaking the lease, and spending another $2 million to build out a new office across town is mathematically more painful than just accepting the rent hike. The friction of moving is engineered to be catastrophic. The goal isn't to win your money once. The goal is to lock you in the building until the escalation clauses slowly drain your corporate treasury. But there is a twist to this, because with the guaranteed 10-year leases, the loss factor, and locked-in tenants, skyscraper owners still lose money. First, out of every dollar of rent collected, a massive chunk vanishes before the owner sees a dime. Property taxes in major cities can swallow 30% of the gross income. Then there is the HVAC system. Heating and cooling a glass tower in the middle of summer is an environmental nightmare that costs millions. But the real killer is vacancy. An empty skyscraper doesn't just stop making money, it actively burns cash. You still have to pay the property taxes. You still have to run the elevators so the mechanics don't seize. You still have to pay the 24/7 security detail. If the macroeconomy shifts, like a massive wave of tech layoffs hits the market, or a global event forces everyone to suddenly work from home, the building empties out. But the bank still demands its massive monthly mortgage payment. But here is the final secret. Step back and look at the real billionaires of the industry. The greatest developers on earth don't actually care about your rent. The rent is just there to keep the lights on and pay the janitor. The real money is in the valuation. Commercial buildings are valued based on the income they generate. If a developer can force the rent up by just a few dollars a square foot, the theoretical value of the entire skyscraper jumps by $100 million. The developer then walks into a bank, points to the new, higher valuation of the building, and takes out a tax-free loan against that new value, then uses the loan to buy another skyscraper. They repeat this process until they die. They aren't landlords. They are macroeconomic traders manipulating yield curves, using steel and glass as their collateral. The building is just a poker chip. So the next time you walk through the financial district, don't look at the architecture, look at the math.